Alright, we talked about prototypical protagonists and resolve, we've talked about found friends, family, and the foundations of interpreting presented personality, and we've talked about how to make mountains out of the tiniest details and mold them to fit ourselves and the heroes we write. Let's talk about evil. To clarify, we're not going to be talking about Digimon who could only ever be partners with the villains, let's bring a familiar face in to help explain. This is not Agumon. This is Black Agumon. They're different. Yeah, this is Dark Agumon, Sinister Agumon, Evil Agumon. As a default, Black Agumon is none of these things, but we've learned a lot about how important something's impressions are, haven't we? We have, but I'm not so sure you can call Black Agumon the default, considering he's quite literally Agumon but black. Yeah, you've got a point. Before we even get a chance to take in a first impression, we're slapped in the face and forced to compare with the original, and that impression is boosted twofold by Agumon's impressions: beaming innocence, unstoppable drive, a commitment to fight tooth and nail for what's right or best for you, and the notion of dark counterparts. If Agumon's the hero, and this is Dark Agumon, surely that means Black Agumon is the inverse of everything we know about the stupid orange lizard, and we can save some word count on explanation. If Agumon is innocent, Black is jaded. If Agumon wants to do the right thing and help its tamer, Black wants to do wrong and hurt their tamer. If Agumon's Superman, Black is General Zod. Of course that's how we'd think. If you pit a protagonist against someone and the only info we can glance is that they look similar and look meaner, the audience is naturally going to pin them as being the bad guy. The but does a lot of work there. Agumon but black, Greymon but blue, Metal Greymon but blue. Why are they blue instead of black again? I don't know. The point is that we'd be saying similar things if black was just Agumon and Agumon was Orange Agumon or something like that. Yeah, but Greymon Orange doesn't really roll off the tongue. And Greymon Blue does. Hey, if it's good enough for Dragon Ball, it's good enough for this. Orange both doesn't have the prominent connotations that the color black does, and looks more striking and positive on the palette of a mascot. Black Agumon will suffice. Won't he ever? Now let's lean into the obvious and tone it down a bit. Agumon is ignorant, Black is understanding. Agumon is extroverted, Black is introverted. Agumon acts like a 3-foot-tall tyrannosaur who has never had a social interaction in his life, so maybe Black is a bit more civil and mature. Taking these things we know and flipping them is the foundation of making any good foil, but Black should be a foil to their tamer before anything else. Let's follow the same thread of ideas we did for Agumon. Innocence and instinct, but this time we're going to do as we should with the mirror and flip it on its head. That's a terrible example. An upside-down mirror still functions the same. So the first idea that brings to mind is, what if Black is the same as Agumon through and through, but the difference is it can't control make people prejudiced towards it? Then we got a story about race on our hands. I feel like pinning Black Agumon with a minority tamer may be a bit too on the nose, but a tamer whose own struggles align with their Digimons is more likely to make a good partner and give Agumon the comfort, understanding, and acceptance that they've likely been deprived of all their life. The second is flipping innocence on its head. So it's experience. We have a grumpy old veteran who, for one of 100 reasons, has been stuck as a rookie for years. We're given an opportunity to either pair them with a tamer who's experienced in their own different way, or we can give them a fledgling without a clue in the world. Regardless, when knowledge and understanding of the world are central to a character's relationships, we can expect that they'll get closer by rubbing off and learning things from one another. Instinct is third, and in the mirror, that's civilization? Morality? Well, it's not social ability. Socialization is a survival instinct. It's thought, right? What do we get from thoughtfulness? Thoughtfulness puts Agumon in a mentor role, a bit more concretely than the experienced Agumon. They can be stoic or haphazard, but they are the ones who are always in the moral green. Thoughtfulness can be pragmatism, it can be empathy, it can be sharing the last bite of slob-covered cheeseburger, something I'd never expect a normal Agumon to do. But no matter how we characterize them, we need to decide what we do about the preconceptions. They either exist and warp the story around them, or we omit them as a statement that they're a stupid construct and shouldn't even be brought into consideration. Both are valid for different kinds of stories, but if we're telling a story and making a partner for what is, at a glance, a stock standard evil counterpart, we need to acknowledge both and lock in on one. It's going to be a lot harder to convince others that your Digimon is good when it turns into Greymon Blue. Which sounds really stupid, like, it's blue, who gives a shit? But in a Digimon setting, Black Agumon and all of its evolutions are a virus. Virus-type Digimon are well known to devour and destroy data, with many wanting to modify the world to fit their wants. They're Digimon like Piedmon, Eismon, and Callusmon, but nowhere does it say that they only destroy good data, or that all of them are megalomaniacal. It's just another stereotype that the Agumon and Tamer have to grapple with. A Greymon Blue showing up is a citywide emergency. No one's gonna ask its intentions or wait to see what it does. Every second a champion-level virus Digimon gets to do what it wants is another second of who knows how much damage being caused. That's what the people will think, at least. And don't get me started on what happens when you get to Ultimate and Mega. We're getting ahead of ourselves. Let's linger on Greymon for a bit. A Black Agumon that digivolves into a Greymon tells the people that don't know them, this is a tamer we shouldn't trust. Not only have they made a partnership with a dangerous Digimon, they've raised and nurtured that Digimon to be even more threatening. It doesn't matter how much control they seem to have over it, it could go on a rampage or eat that tamer at any time. And the longer it goes without doing that, the more danger the rest of the world is in. It isn't going to matter to most that Greymon is the better of the two evolution options, because it's a champion level virus. And people were going to have reservations being anywhere near a normal Greymon to begin with, so you gotta ratchet those feelings up when the Greymon you're forcing others to be around has a stereotype about being evil floating around it. But Greymon means the tamer is on the right path. Just like Agumon, it's resolve that makes the Digivolution happen. In case 1, it could be the resolve to be more than the stereotypes that weigh on their shoulders, refusing to restrain who the tamer and Digimon are any longer and to go bigger and better. In case 2 and 3, it's a handshake moment, when tamer and Digimon both realize that they both have a lot to learn from one another, and that they are peers and partners instead of a mentor and a student. In that case, it's alignment that makes the spark happen. It does make for the apparently infinitely harder to handle Greymon, but only after both parties level and reach a deeper understanding. There's definitely a strong metaphor there for the perceived relationship versus the actual relationship, where evil Greymon towers over everything and stores more concern in any eyes that settle on it, but still levels with its tamer exactly like it did when it was an Agumon. You have to keep it front and center in your mind that in this case, the partnership is about misconceptions. But I guess we were going to talk about evil, so let's get back on track. Black Agumon is a potential for evil, and there are 3 ways I can think of to build on that. The first was as we discussed, making the potential perceived but not actualizing it. Something that is dangerous at a baseline, imposing, and has a lot of stigmas that make it seem evil, assuming an absence of nuance. The idea of making Black Agumon just the same character as Agumon is a less popular reading that is still plenty valid. The most popular reading, though, of making a Black Agumon that digivolves into a Black WarGreymon is making it Batman. Let's laser in on where we're going to wind up and pick some differences off the bone. Although its creed and principles are the polar opposite of those of WarGreymon, it exists for the sake of its own peculiar justice. It detests cowardice and foul play, and it doesn't consider itself a fellow of vulgar Digimon, even if they are the same virus species. It's Batman. Acts like a criminal to support its unorthodox justice and holds itself to a higher standard than most of the people he associates with. Vulgar makes me think of the no body bagging rule. It's Batman. This is a Digimon of a almost anything goes if it means keeping the streets clean kind of tamer. It's the partner to, if we're doing this my way, and skirts the line of villainy. Very easily able to be catapulted over the line at any time, but always walking right along it. Black Agumon is little Bruce, getting pitied for existing. Greymon is the Bruce who went globetrotting to gather the skills to be the person he wanted to be. Metal Greymon is a Batman who is still just Greymon with a utility built in a Batmobile, and Black WarGreymon is the Batman through and through. They're mature, flush with the hard shell that they started building when they became a Greymon, and a terror to any and all who make him come after them. Wait, does that mean that BWG's tamer could be an Alfred? Like, an enabler? To be fair, a normal person getting involved with Mega Digimon level business would probably be ill-advised, and I'd feel pretty safe if my city was under the protection of a Black WarGreymon, even if I would probably be in the minority. That's another point towards the Batman angle. That's a scary dude and no one will have any confidence that he won't do horrible things to them if they step out of line and get caught. But it might be a bit more convincing if the pedestal BWG stands on isn't on the other side of the sand. Batman WarGreymon is terrifying, but I'd be more concerned about a Kingpin or a Penguin kind of character. You have to keep in mind that BWG is a Digimon with an inherent ego. It sees itself as better than the scum it surrounds itself with. I can reasonably read that as wanting to rise above your station and image, wanting to act like a monster for good reason, or wanting to be a bigger, badder, more organized and impactful monster than the dime a dozen thugs. But there is a code and it follows it. It has a sense of justice that's anywhere from skewed to twisted, and the role a BWG gets to play hinges on which of him or his partner is the one that actually calls the shots. In case 1, Black WarGreymon is the muscle that punches a hole in the stereotypes surrounding virus Digimon, doing some act of good that makes the evil floating around them get reframed as necessary. It was a product of BWG and their tamer constantly taking turns pulling the other along until they could step out into the light. No one of them was leading the sled. They both had problems to overcome and prejudices to tackle, and had to rely on the other to give them pushes at important times. In case 2, the veteran finally reaches a peak of power and has learned from their tamer all the ways they can put it to use. The innocence their tamer injected into their worldview chipped away at the jadedness that came with experience. They were taught by a tamer who didn't know the cruelty of the world, and that tamer's perseverance in the face of that cruelty, that it's what you do with your power that makes you who you are, not the power itself. In case 3, the mentor becomes a figurehead for other viruses. It puts itself on a pedestal not as an exception but as a leader and shows the benefits of being thoughtful, and not being controlled by impulses and outside opinion. They learned everything they could and spread their wings wide, and now they have to help those who've yet to take flight make the strides they did. You also have an angle of making BWGs an underdog story. There's plenty of note about it being inferior to the original WarGreymon, worse equipment, flimsier justice, you know how it is. But that's just a case 1 story falling under a different umbrella. The potential for evil is only that, potential. And all that potential means you have an even bigger triumph if they wind up becoming a hero. It also means you should engage a lot with the nuances if you decide to take BWG down the route of evil so it doesn't deepen the actual stereotype of it being a Digimon only evil bastard should have. But maybe that stereotype exists for a reason. Maybe considering nuance and giving them the benefit of the doubt is a mistake. Maybe they're actually just evil. What was that? I can handle the rest of the video myself. Yeah, but... But speaking of those, the potential for evil is still potential, and Black Agumon's got a lot of it. Let's talk about the particular stereotypes we'll be playing into with this next segment. That of viruses as mindless forces of destruction and evil. They exist instinctually to cause chaos and spread their own influence in that regard for others. So when Black Agumon becomes Dark Tyrannomon, it feeds us a photo of indiscriminate destruction. The only tamer who could ever want a Dark Tyrannomon is one wanting to use it as a weapon. It identifies anything reflected in its eyes as an enemy and starts attacking, becoming completely frenzied. It's an attack dog on a leash. A little thing to note is that lore-wise, Dark Tyrannomon comes about from Tyrannomon being infected with the virus, and by the nature of Digimon evolving based on their bond with their tamer, you could pin the partner as the virus and the one at fault for Dark Tyrannomon coming around at all. This is the partner of an awful person. No shade to anyone who likes it. You can make readings all over the spectrum for any Digimon, but this one's the most prominent and needs my focus. It's the kind of adult you get from a child who's been taught all its life that strength is all that matters, and everyone but their parents is out to get them. And unlike with WarGreymon and SaberDramon, this isn't a pit stop. This line keeps going and that sentiment repeats. Get stronger, don't rely on anything but me. Get even stronger, don't rely on anything. Extremely prominent forearms tell me that this is a beast of action. The things it uses to do things, being as hulking as they are, even looking big enough to be unwieldy, give it more than just an air of danger. Greymon doesn't have the means to swing on you like a Dark Tyrannomon does, and a Digimon that evolved to be able to throw claws around screams fireballs, headbutts, and tail swipes aren't enough for me. I crave violence. It's bigger than most opponents, it's badder than most opponents, and against most opponents, it's gonna be hard to not see Dark Tyrannomon as the villain. A more domestic setting isn't one where it can flourish. By pursuing a slice of life route, you're bottlenecking this Digimon's ability to spread its wings and show off its strength. That is not necessarily a bad thing, though. Restricting Dark Tyrannomon's strengths could actually be a way to mellow it out. By not giving it an environment where it can cut loose and cause mayhem and still insisting that it thrive would... No, we're getting off track. Villainy, evil. This is about Dark Tyrannomon being the monster the world will always think it is. A tamer who brings a Dark Tyrannomon out is the same kind that would make a WarGreymon. The difference is that the former can at least be controlled and directed. Neither it nor Metal Tyrannomon are just going to cadaverize their tamer for happening to be nearby when it digivolved. They're barbaric, but still conscious and retain an understanding of their tamer. Of course, that tamer isn't going to talk back to Dark Tyrannomon or boss it around too much unless they're a badass, but I'd be surprised if one wouldn't stop when asked or told to simmer down. We aren't going to hit a bad end scenario with this line. WarGreymon was an abnormality, losing everything including its sense of reason and self in exchange for destructive power. SaberDramon was a product of rejection and a cluster of bad feelings that didn't mesh with the Digimon it was meant to be or the person its tamer was meant to be. All the grooming to be stronger and the pragmatic worldviews being fed into Black Agumon's brain fall flush with it, because the path of Dark Tyrannomon is the path of a weapon, not a monster. It's a lesson in pushing yourself too far. Dark Tyrannomon is one of the strongest champions there is, so its strength gets stretched and strained until it itself can't grow any stronger, and in order to reach the next level, it resorts to upgrades, augmentations, artificial enhancements to stack on top of its naturally monstrous power to take it to new heights. It raises it to the level of ultimate, turning Dark Tyrannomon into Metal Tyrannomon and starting the cycle over. Keep pushing, keep striving for more, take every inch you can until you hit a wall, and when you hit that wall, you ask yourself, how do I go further? The artificial made Dark Tyrannomon stronger than training ever did, and all of the growth Metal Tyrannomon went through as it got more and more upgrades proved that if they wanted more strength, they'd have to start cutting further and further back on the creature to make more room for the weapon. Metal Tyrannomon is a bridge, and as it grows and grows stronger, you eventually cross it. At that point, there is no more creature left, just weapon. Metal Tyrannomon becomes 100% machine and becomes Machinedramon. This is the digital world's strongest Digimon. Just ignore the evolution, the ultras, the fusions, the reality warpers, the extinction events, and Shoutmon. In terms of raw, unfiltered, destructive power, Machinedramon is up there. The number of other Mega Digimon who can realistically contend with it are few. It has nearly unmatched strength, incredible intellect, and doesn't have a will of its own. In most cases, Machinedramon are filled with directives and polluted with evil intentions, but with a tamer they become a tool. We loop back to WarGreymon in that sense. Whatever their tamer wants, Machinedramon is going to help them get it. But Machinedramon trades all of WarGreymon's virtue out for even more power. A Digimon like Machinedramon needs an ambitious tamer, or a tamer who needs to learn to be ambitious. Black Agumon is impressionable, just like Agumon is, and needs direction to determine the path it grows along. Dark Tyrannomon is developed, and when it reaches the ceiling it needs the tamer to push it further and commit to putting it to use. Metal Tyrannomon needs its tamer to get more and more comfortable demanding from it, and using their partnership as the leverage they need to make the ends they want meet. There is a silver lining of degeneration, that even after they become Machinedramon you can still return them to their prior forms. Without that you get a slightly different story, one of a tamer that whittles away at their partner's identity until nothing but the parts that serve them remain. But with it you have modes. You have a partner that loyally serves its tamer's ambitions, has the power to help them overcome any odds, and is willing to put its own will on the shelf for the sake of helping its tamer get any and everything that they want. That's a pretty sentiment depending on how hard you think about it, but it goes both ways. Ambition goes both ways. Wanting nothing more to become the Battle League champion, wanting nothing more than to put an end to a war that's been plaguing their country, wanting nothing more than to put the whole of the digital world under your thumb. Those are all ambitious things, and they all set the stage for someone somewhere to set their sights on a prize, throw their personal feelings to the wind, and raise a machine Dramon to stand with them. It's either the terror in the night, or the digital world's #1 knee snapper. Black Agumon is an ambitious Digimon, and it's best for a tamer able to help those ambitions take shape. Is there a balance to strike? Does the tamer nurture their innocent partner until they have ambitions of their own, until they're able to work together to make both of their dreams a reality, or does the partner's ambitions matter more, to the characters or the story, and Black Agumon either doesn't develop ambitions of their own, clinging onto their tamers, or even discarding their own ambitions for the sake of serving their partners? Give me an end goal, give me an alignment, tell me how far you're willing to let your partner push themselves down for you, and look at Black Agumon again. He's definitely not the Digimon for me. I'm not defiant enough for a BWG, and I'm not cutthroat enough for a Machine Dramon. But defiance and ruthlessness can be spun in so many ways that I'm sure he's the Digimon for a fair few of you. I'm Numu, and thank you for tuning into the box in the middle of everything.